Okay, well, we'll register your name on that one.
Yet.
These 7
You're
applications have been publicly advertised. You can pass... Oh, sorry.
You know, last week you tried to pretend I wasn't here.
No, it's...
I'd like to remind you that I was elected, and I am here.
Well, what are we...
And I'm talking about business arising. You're gone on somewhere else.
But we registered you as nay there, no?
I'm talking about something else.
Oh, I didn't know you had a second point.
Am I boring you?
Reserve
Well, if I
comment.
haven't succeeded, I shall try again. 72 Livingstone Street. I asked for that report for this week relating to the water in the basement of Mr. and Mrs. Seward's house, which wasn't there before the non-profit housing was established. City housing. Mr. Seward spoke with you. You're aware of it. They have water in the basement. The pipe is up there, and all they want is someone to put that pipe in to divert the water, to put it in the shape it was in beforehand. It's an old house. They reared their family. There's a rec room, den downstairs. And we say, our insurers say, that we're not responsible. Now, I want that report from the insurers.
Did you get it? You've requested it.
So, I'll be standing here again next week.
Well,
and
we'll
I'd
certainly
like,
try and get the report for you.
I would like very much for you to recognize me when I stand. Bear with me. Suffer, if you must.
Lady in
but
white.
Bear with me.
Okay, now we move on. Any other? Yeah.
Last week, relative to a rezoning, and I refer to page 44 in the minutes, and I would like now to move that we rezone the section at the back line off a Howlett's line from rural designation to RR1. Now, this was discussed at the planning meeting the other day, and the planning department have recommended the same thing. In the rezoning and all the stuff that was done and the planning in the schools, this little area was left out, and I had asked back earlier that it be included, and somebody neglected to include it, and I neglected to see that it was included because I took it for granted that it was. This area fits into the RRI perfectly, and there's no reason why it should have been left out. So that's why I'm making that motion.
Okay, there is a seconder. All those in favor say aye. Contrary carried. Now, Councillor Coombs.
Yes, Your Worship, just one item from page 48 having to do with the property tax arrears notice. I spoke to the Director of Finance, and I think it's important because we mentioned this, and lo and behold, it is possible to change the computer. It is possible to get it to think differently. In other words, it's more flexible than some people, all right, in terms of getting it.
What did you mean by that?
I just made a comment, Your Worship.
Oh, I see, yes.
All right? The bottom line is that it is possible to take that computer, and apparently what they're going to do, in all honesty, is they've received a number of complaints themselves, and the Director of Finance has said that it should be rectified within the next 2 or 3 months.
They're going to make it talk nice.
They're going to make it so that it doesn't get on with the type of language that we have basically sent out to those people who have been in arrears all of $3 or $4. Imagine.
Yes, I'm glad of that because it's very annoying to get things like that. We now come to these 7 items. Would somebody like to move them en masse? You don't want to move them en masse? Do you have a comment? Is there a secondary? You're second. Does anybody have any comment? Is there any one there that you wish to single out, Councillor Skinner? All right, no. All right.
Move the rest?
Well, we'll move them with the exception number 5, then we'll deal with number 5, if that's your wish. All those in favor say aye. Contrary? No contraries. And now we'll come back to number 5. Mr. Wayne Williams requesting permission to establish a commercial automobile repair garage at 6 Brennan Street. off-street parking for 5 vehicles is available on the site. Did you have something?
Your Worship, my objection is not so much with Mr. Williams's request, so much as the letter or information of objection that I'd received from the Pharmaceutical Association. I'm looking for it now, actually, and I can't lay my hands on it. The gist of which, pardon me? It's in after? Oh, yes, thank you. The gist of this, Your Worship, was that apparently there had been other plans that the Pharmaceutical Association were made aware of by the city in terms of clearing out that piece of land for a small park, and through considerable expense they'd done up their own building down there, and basically what I'm looking for is deferment for an opportunity to just check into this a bit further.
Oh, yeah.
To see.
But Brennan Street disappeared, didn't it?
Still a little piece there, Your Worship.
Is there a little bit of it left?
Your Worship, I had some discussions with Mr. Cheeseman in respect to the correspondence, and where he had to leave suddenly. Today I never got a chance to clarify it with him, but I asked
Can we have
him.
a motion to defer?
Yeah, we've got a motion to ask him to clarify it.
All those in favor say aye. Oh, sorry.
I think that letter from the O'Mara Pharmacy, the apothecaries, they've put a lot of effort into that, the pharmacists. And I really think we should reject that request. We don't want a garage next to that museum. Deferring it as, and we've also made some promises, apparently, to have that restored, to have it beautified. This never occurred, and I think that, well, if we're going to defer it, why didn't we meet that commitment? So,
Well, I think you're probably right, but since the motion is to defer, I would assume that Councillor Skinner will accept the responsibility of checking into it and giving us his recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Contrary carried. The public hearings is next, and Councillor Ray O'Neill was there regarding the bicycle helmet bylaw. Is there anything you wish, or is this just for information?
Well, basically, Your Worship, this is for information purposes. This has already been, in point of fact, reported on, and it's for Council's information.
Thank you. The Finance Committee?
We are reactivating the Finance Committee after a little bit of a hiatus, and I shall try and be as quick as I possibly can. First recommendation simply makes reference to what we consider to be the appropriate terms of reference for the Finance Committee. We are going to try and keep Council informed in much greater detail as to the ongoing financial circumstances of the city, and that's what those first 3 or 4 items make reference to the monthly appropriations reports and the reports concerning the water and the fire service. Item number 4 refers to the Finance Committee assuming responsibility as Council's audit committee and supervise the external audit of the city's books. And also number 5 refers to reviewing the annual audit program.
Is that worded correctly, though?
Yes,
to
sir.
approve?
Pardon?
It says on number 5, to approve the annual audit program.
Yes.
Should that not be to recommend approval of?
Okay, yes. All right, that's
You
probably
have no
true.
power to approve.
We're going to do, there's going to be some,
You gotta watch them, you know.
what?
Power grab.
Yes, boy, listen to who's talking. We're shocking, out of the mouth of babes. Your Worship, we will review the annual audit program and recommend it to Council. I guess that's what we're saying there. And then the 6 and 7 are simply the ongoing review of departmental budgets and expenditures. And number 7 is the idea of trying to come up with some performance measures. I just want to make a note on page 2 as well, Your Worship, on the volume of paper that's flying around this city. I mean, it absolutely staggers me, and I think we've got to try and cut down on the amount of paper that is produced. I think I'm just hazarding a guess, but I would venture to say 1/3 of the paper that comes across my desk, I don't need to see it.
I've got 2 waste paper baskets. I'm requisitioning a 3rd.
Yeah, so we're recommending, just as a start, which of the monthly appropriation reports, that should go just directly to the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
We'll review them, note any significant variances. Copies are readily available to any member of Council who wants details. Same with committee reports. I mean, I get committee reports that I'm not on. If I'm not on a committee, I'm not interested in seeing the report. And I think it's just an absolute waste of money to be duplicating reports. The reports for, or agendas for committees should go to members, council members, and the appropriate staff that are involved. That's all. I think we can.
To the committee members.
Yeah, just the committee members and the directors and other people who are involved in committee work. And finally, Your Worship, we just want to, on that item, just a comment on the budget review process. We think the various standing committees should review departmental budgets in isolation, and then with final referral to the Finance Committee, sitting as a committee the whole of Council would sit as a Finance Committee and then review budgets and make final recommendations to the public chamber. So that's basically how we see it going. Item number 2 makes reference to we're trying to standardize our audit programs for commissions and boards. We want the same auditor now, the same external auditor appointed to handle not only the city's accounts, but the Transportation Commission and the St. John's Maple Leafs Club. I think those are the only two organizations now that would not fall under our audit program, so we're making that recommendation. I have no real comment on, let me see what else is there. There's a comment on copying services for non-profit organizations, disposition of redundant computer equipment. I don't have any real comment on that. Number 8, now capital financing of 404 snow blowers. That's a $771,000 item, and is not provided for in the final draft of the capital budget, but it can be accommodated. So I think we can probably approve that on the advice of the Director of Finance. What else is there? I don't think there's any. I want to note under requests for funding and rebates. Oh yes, Your Worship, the two apartments. That's very controversial, and I can say as a member of the committee that we spent an awful lot of time trying to come to grips with this issue. That's the idea of what is required when there's a request for a relief of water tax in a 2-apartment building when the basement apartment in fact is not being used or rented. And we on the basis of the advice that we've received in an extensive discussion, we recommended that we're not prepared to recommend any changes in the city's current policy. We'd be open, and we believe, a Pandora's box, and it would create an awful lot of problems. So
I don't wish to delay, but I wish you to explain to me. You know, a person gets married, they're trying to pay off a house, so they got a basement apartment. Then their finances improve, they don't need to rent it anymore, their children want to use it. So why has he got to pay 2 water taxes?
Because, Your Worship, it is a second unit. It is a second unit.
Only its basement.
And the property is I mean, if the property was to be advertised for sale, I'm sure the owner would advertise that there is a basement apartment, so it has additional value. It has an extra water service, and we're saying that the water tax has to be paid. We looked at it, but it would open up how would you decide? I mean, somebody would have to come down to council and say, look, I'm not using my basement apartment, so I want relief from water tax. Now, how would we know that people are telling us the truth? I mean, I know in some cases people obviously would tell us the truth, but you would get involved in an awful administrative nightmare trying to decide who is and who is not.
So a person who builds a house and puts in a basement apartment to try to pay it off, he's saddled in for the rest of his life. He may only rent it for 3 years, and for the next 40 years he's got to pay double water tax. I don't think it's fair. Councillor Coombs.
Well, it's up to council.
Well, I think we can discuss this point, yes.
Yeah, okay, because, Your Worship, I disagree with the finding of the committee. I spoke to the Director of Finance on this very issue, and I believe that there's something tragically wrong in 1994 that we can't come up with a system that is fair and equitable to those who basically have 2 basement apartments. You mentioned the young couple. I'll give you another instance of a gentleman who I visited, a retired gentleman who has a 2-apartment, who decided that he does not want to have it rented anymore. I just would like to have his own home to himself totally, and is not using the apartment at all, and said to me, look, why do I have to pay it anymore? All right, the only way that I can have it removed is if I go down and cause major destruction to my apartment. In other words, haul out the cupboards, haul out thousands of dollars worth of material that's gone into it. I spoke to another person who said, look, I'm prepared if they want to come in and check it, if they want to take my tax report to show whether there was income gained from it or whatever the case may be. I cannot accept that in 1994 that we can't come up with a system that's going to be fair to those people who no longer have use of that apartment, that second unit. And I think it's wrong, morally wrong, to turn around and take from those people that money on the basis of, well, you got it installed, it's there, too bad. And the only way you can get rid of it is to turn around now and, like I said, tear up your apartment. That's not right.
I agree.
In my estimation, that is not right. I've had many people, or several people I should say, call me and suggest that, look, that's why you have inspectors. Now, we know through the I suppose 85-90% of the people are probably very legal-minded and will tell you up front. They'll register their apartments. But we know there are probably hundreds or thousands of apartments here in St. John's that are not even registered. So these people who have abided by the law, have played the game, have paid their money, are now being slapped on the hands by the City Council because they're not prepared to come up with a system, not prepared to try to get a system that recognizes that these people no longer have to have use of that second water system, therefore should not be given the water tax. So, Your Worship, I think, I don't know what way we take it, but if we want to single this out, I'm prepared to move a motion to direct whatever committee to put in place a system that is much fairer and equitable to those who don't use it.
Would that be your Public Works Committee would look into it?
Well, if I have no problem with it coming to us.
It's not a public works issue. It's an issue of the financing of the city, and it's an issue of assessments. Now, I'll note in the second and last paragraph, the Director of Finance advised that the St. John's Assessment Act, Section 22, does not deal with whether a property is occupied for purposes of charging the water tax and does not allow a specific exemption for vacant units. So if we're going to get involved in exemptions for vacant units, you're going to have to consider not just your basement apartment, but you're going to have to get involved in multiple departments.
Why is the last sentence there?
Because that's why I think
you refer the Public Works Committee be advised. Why are you advising the Public Works?
I don't know why it's a public works issue.
That's what I suggested that it might go.
Well, Your Worship, look, it's a question of changing the St. John's Assessment Act on for point 1, and maybe what council should do, if it wishes to proceed, rather than taking my word for it, and I have no problem with that, is get the views directly of the Director of Finance and the Manager of Collections. Maybe we'll refer it to the next special agenda of council and have the Director of Finance in and the Manager of Collections in to tell council directly what kinds of problems that would ensue if we decide to change the policy. Put that on the agenda for the next meeting. Is that acceptable to council?
All right, well, we can discuss it.
It's wrong. It's a simple
all I can say is before you decide something is wrong, you should hear the arguments.
If this is wrong, I don't care what the arguments are, Deputy Mayor.
You don't care?
If it is wrong, then it is wrong. You can take whatever arguments, color whatever way you wish.
I'm not coloring anything.
If it is wrong, then it's wrong.
Well, make a motion. Move it.
Prepared to make a motion, then?
Well, I think I agree with you, and I think you're very sincere in it. But I do think, in all fairness to the Finance Committee who have studied this, the Council should hear the views of the Director of Finance.
We spent an hour at this, Your Worship. We argued this out extensively, and none of the arguments that are being put here tonight by Councillor Coombs, none of the arguments were not made at that meeting, because I made them. As an isolated example, I am very sympathetic to the Blackwoods on Cornwall Avenue. It's difficult to argue with the logic of the point that person is making, or that man and wife are making. Why are we paying the tax? But when you sit down and you look at the fact that we've got 37,000 households in this city, I don't know how many basement apartments, I don't know how many multiple, probably 10,000 apartment units in this city. If we get involved in making exemptions on vacancies for vacant units, you're going to create some considerable administrative problems. Now maybe Councillor Coombs doesn't care about that, but that's wrong as well, because we're going to create a situation where we're not going to be able to, on the basis of the advice that I was given by the Director of Finance and the Manager of Collections, properly police the changed regulation. Don't take my word for it. As I say, put it on the agenda for the next meeting. If you decide that the comments of the Director of Finance and the comments of the Manager of Collections are invalid and it's still wrong, Councillor Coombs, then make your motion, boy, and do what you want. But at least have the courtesy to listen to the people who know what they're talking about and have looked at the issue in some detail. Do them the courtesy. Never mind me as chairman of the committee. I'm not concerned about courtesy, but have the courtesy to listen to the arguments that these people made. And they're not trying to make life difficult for citizens. They're not trying to make anybody's life difficult. But it is a complicated issue. It is not, unfortunately, black and white. When I got involved in it first, I said, this, as far as I'm concerned, is black and white, a simple issue. But when you sit down and look at it as an administrative problem, it is not nearly as black and white, and it's a little bit complex. So I would suggest to Council, postpone it, put it on the agenda for a special meeting, make it an order of the day, and bring in the two people who have to administer the problem. Let them tell you firsthand what kind of problems you're going to have. Is there anything wrong with that? What?
You know, speaking of that too, I mean, you had a couple of people at that meeting. The Deputy Mayor was sympathetic to these people, so was I. That's right. I mean, if someone could tell us another alternative or some way of handling that, we would have probably had a better recommendation.
The one thing I would like to know
what do you do?
Is that if there are, say, 5,000 basement apartments or duplexes here, of that 5,000, how many have applied for relief? In other words, have given up? I bet you'll find there's probably no more than 20 or 30 a year that actually apply to have the extra water tax. Well, I mean, it'd be a criminal offense.
Ridiculous. Your Worship, I'll wait until I have an opportunity to speak to the Director of Finance and to the Manager of Collections to see what they have to say, to see if they can persuade me, because I think it is, as the Deputy Mayor said when he stood up, this is a touchy one. Not on the surface, well below the surface, I agree with Councillor Coombs. I have this philosophy that if you don't provide a service to me and I no longer want your service, then why should I have to pay? And don't be petty to make me tear out walls and cupboards and faucets and just to spite me because I'm not availing of the service. If I'm willing to sign an affidavit to the effect that I no longer rent a basement apartment or a subsidiary apartment in my home, then surely, God, the city has got to, at some point, some way along the road, be prepared to take a legal affidavit from somebody as a quick signature. Now, if they're prepared to come all the way down to City Hall to sign an affidavit, puts them on the oath as telling this as being the truth, and if they're lying, well, that's about all we can do. But I prefer to be able to err on the side of justice in terms of I'm not receiving the service, then I shouldn't have to pay. And I'm willing to go the extra mile to be able to prove that, as I said, through an affidavit. And if you're willing to come down here to this City Hall, take the time of your busy schedule, sign an affidavit, then I think chances are you are a top-notch, law-abiding citizen who just wants to pay for what he or she properly owns. And if they do not avail of the service, then we don't. And I'll bet you they'll be the first people back at the steps of City Hall, if in some future date they had to re-rent their apartment. They'll come down because they know they were on the road. They'll come down and say, look, I'm renting it now, begin to charge me the water tax. Thank you. So I wait to hear from it, but I support
we'll
Councillor
defer
Coombs.
it until it goes on the agenda. Carry on, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
I don't have any comments, Your Worship, except on...
You refunded the Salvation Army.
Yes, the rest of it is pretty straightforward. Just want to note, Your Worship, we're not going to rebate grants in lieu of taxes to the Newfoundland Dockyard. I don't think that we can get involved in that. So that's the report. And the committee will be meeting, Your Worship, bi-weekly now, and there will be regular reports coming to Council.
All right.
Move it down to the report.
All those in favor? Yeah.
Leave out number 3 also. I'd like to do a bit more research on number 3. That's number 3. I'll second it, yes. But I'd like to see number 3 left out or deferred also, the municipal taxes on firms, because we got a letter in the back of our agenda tonight from a person who has a lot of land that's frozen. I'd like to do a bit of research and see how much... No, but what I can say, I'd like to see what the costs are, what the implications are. Right here we're saying no, but I'd like to have some example of what people are paying because of this tax that they have on land that they can't use because it's frozen.
Just asking the chairperson, wondering if after last week's motion in which we provided the money to someone who went to the Canadian Darts, Junior Darts Championship, or whatever it's called, was there any consideration, or would you put that on the next meeting to look at some type of... Excuse me, to put some type of policy in place that would make sure that we don't do the similar thing again. I think that what we need to do is tighten it up a bit so that such motions don't even be entered here in the chamber before going to finance. So I wonder if the chairman could...
We got no money left, that's what we're saying.
No.
Well, one of these children who was here tonight
Yes.
has requested $500 to go to Ottawa on a special project representing the city, but I had to tell him no, that there was no funds available.
Your Worship, we've exhausted our budget. I think there's a note in here somewhere, isn't there, on that? I'm sure there is. Number 5. The budget for 1994 is over expended, and there's 8 or 10 requests for funding here, and we just said we have no budget, we have to turn them all down. That's all.
I understand what the Deputy Mayor is saying, but what I'm saying, the first one slipped through. All right? When I say it slipped through, I mean that our process is such that perhaps that motion should not have gone through directly, but rather through finance. Okay? And all I'm saying is that we need to, rather than getting in a situation where you come with a motion, then I come with a motion, and this type of thing, that the Finance Committee acts as the sounding board and the monitor to ensure such motions don't make it to the
Well, it's academic for the rest of this year because there's no money.
Well, that's fair enough, but I'm saying for
Your
next year.
Worship,
Give us the money.
the motion that I made at the time was to refer that to the grants and subsidies where it went. And then it was approved as a part of the grants and subsidies which came here for approval. That's the process I use.
Anyway.
Your Worship, we're going to have to find a better system for it, and the reason I say that is that those who need money early in the year are going to get it, simply because their activities are in January, February, March, and April. When you get into minor sports program, and who's representing the city in minor baseball or minor soccer, or whatever the case may be, their seasons and their teams and championships won't be decided. The All Newfoundlands won't be decided until sometime in October. So they're out of luck. They're out of luck because of timing. And I think that recognizing that, it's an opportunity to say, look, let's sit down and let's put $3,000 for minor sports programming, $3,000 if we got whatever, I don't know what the amount is, $3,000 for representing the city to certain other things. But that way we know where the money is, how much the money is going. Otherwise, we can say, we'll take one team from boys minor soccer and ladies minor soccer, one team from minor baseball, minor softball. It's got to be a fashion, because I can tell you right now that just by the nature, as I said, of the timing, people who play sports now, this time of the year, on to the end, have no chance. They'd be better off applying for the $500 that we used to give them in January, hoping that they win the All Newfoundland. If they don't win it, then they give it back to us. But that doesn't make sense. I mean, that's a back-formist way of doing things. So I would ask the committee if take a very quick look and simply say, look, here's the best system, or else get out of it all, one way or the other, or else try to come up with some fair system.
We shall move on now to the motion. All those in favor say aye. Contrary? Any nays?
Pardon?
Any nays?
No.
All right. Councillor Coombs.
The Public Works Environment Protection Standing Committee. First of all, in the number 1, we're looking at giving the ACAT
It's an awful waste of money.
$690.
$690 to ask if they like our water. So we got perfect water.
If I may finish, then I'm sure that you'll have all kinds of comments on it. Secondly, with the impounding of vehicles, this particular issue at the...
Would you want to stick on number 1 first?
Sure, go ahead, Your
Yeah,
Worship.
why would you want to pay somebody $690 to tell them if they like our water? As Andrew Carnell used to say, there is not another drop of water in the world to equal it.
Your Worship, it has more to do with
the
water
harbour, why
quality
not the drinking
of
water?
St. John's Harbour. If you would like a glass of St. John's Harbour water in the meantime, Your Worship,
St. John's Harbour, it's not
yes.
the drinking water.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
You had me puzzled about it. Anyway, what do they want to study?
Your Worship, basically to ascertain the will or the wishes of the people, to see if indeed they've come forward and said there's a major problem. They've come forward and also said that we need to do something about it. They want to find out from the people of St. John's if they feel the same way. And obviously they want to find out if indeed if the wishes are so overwhelming to cause council perhaps to move on this issue, because it is a political issue. I would suggest to you that it might become more than that. It's a health issue as well. But indeed, this is the reason why they've come to us and asked us for.
Why should they come to us? They're funded by the federal government.
Well, I don't think they have monies for such things, Your Worship. And I think on behalf of council, who represents all the people of St. John's, that it's a very small cost.
You want to blow 20 million on a civic centre, you can find $600 for a clean harbour.
Okay. Carry
Number
on.
2, the impounding of vehicles, storage city depot.
Your Worship, I would like to speak on that.
Which one?
Go to number 2. I would agree with you. I think number 1 is a total waste of money. Our officials, they're all very qualified professional people, all our technical people. Their attitude to pay somebody to go out and say, will you tell us now, this one is an attitudinal survey on the water quality of St. John's Harbour. You know, it's time to quit giving away money. I can't vote for that.
So there.
Okay.
2 mirrors against you.
I agree with you when you're sensible.
That's right.
Thank you very much. With regard to the impounding of vehicles, Your Worship, apparently this has been a problem for our security people, particularly obviously during the winter. And it's taken our security people away from the areas where we need them most. It's created hassles, it's created additional administrative work, and so on. So our people came in to us and suggested that perhaps we could tender it out and have it done somewhere by a private company or whatever the case may be. It also removes the possibility, Your Worship, of any interference by politicians or other people in terms of when cars are impounded.
We never did that.
Well, Your Worship, there were incidents related to us.
Well, you
Not necessarily by politicians, I should mention.
Well, on number 2, have we checked out whether this, the people who are now doing it are 569, collective agreement? We can't farm things out unless that is considered by the collective agreement, agreed to. So we should go no further until there is dialogue on that.
Your Worship, it's my understanding when it came to the committee that this was not an infringement on the collective agreement.
No, but it doesn't say.
Okay, well, obviously we'll get that, make sure that is the case. And if it is the case, I would assume then you will be in favour of it, Councillor Wyatt. Thank you. Number 3, request from Walmart, storage of PCBs at both city malls. We are suggesting that that not go ahead, and we received a request from there. Number 4, we would...
Number 3 for a second. Walmart wants to store PCBs at both city malls. The question I have is, where's the PCBs coming from?
Right. Where are they coming from?
Where they might come from the heating system, I have no idea.
Okay, so they're not going to store them there, so where are we telling them to put them? I mean,
An approved site.
there are no
What is
sites.
Walmart doing with PCBs?
No, there are lots of PCBs. They're in ballasts, in transformer lights. They're in half the buildings in St. John's, got them, Your Worship. But no, that's not the issue. The issue is not the fact that they have them or don't have them. The issue is if I tell Walmart, or whomever it may be, that no, you cannot store PCBs that are presently on your site, either on the parking lot, in ballasts, in the lights, or wherever, you can't store them. Well, they'll say, well, where do we put them? And our answer to them has got to be, well, you find a place. Well, they'll say, fine, until we find a place, what will we do with them? I mean, it becomes, there's a hole in my bucket, there lies it. I mean, you know, they won't know where to go with them. I mean, I know, I've gone through this with on a number of issues, as you can appreciate, and if they could find a place to store them, if we have an approved site, the city does at the depot, are we allowing them to store them at the depot? All right, that's one of...
We don't have a site there anymore.
All right, so the site at the depot is now gone. So where are we storing ours when we take them out of service? Where are we storing them? I assume we're storing them in an approved site. And as far as I know, there are only 2 approved sites within 20 miles of here. And I understood that the depot has an approved site. We were taking the PCBs out from the watershed area, and we were asking for permission. Remember the issue up in Mundy Pond? The whole issue of the storage of the PCBs in our yard? So we as a city had one place, but that's going to be exhausted soon. And all I'm saying is that when a firm such as Walmart or some of the government offices or a hotel, whomever may, not because of their own choice, but simply the equipment was bought 30 or 40 years ago, and PCBs was the coolant agent then. Now they have them. Now they have to put them somewhere. And if they can secure them...
Are you asking a question?
Yeah, I'm asking who are you
asking
Walmart,
a question of? It's
where
not
can
me, surely.
okay.
I don't know where to put them.
Oh, don't you? Well, okay, I'll ask the chairman. What do we tell Walmart what to do with their PCBs so that they're secured safely?
I would contend that what we would say is perhaps, and I believe, and I stand to be corrected, that there is an approved site out at the Torbay Airport, I believe around that area. I'm not 100% sure. But that what we would tell these people is that we cannot allow them to store such chemicals in these particular buildings. That's number one. Number two, then it is up to them to find appropriate places, whether it be in province, out of province, or wherever the case may be. The issue is not where, or I should say the issue is not whether we have approved sites or not. The issue is whether this council is going to allow companies to store on site these chemicals, period.
No, that's not my... I mean, this is a very serious issue. The storage of PCBs and the secure storage of PCBs is a very serious issue. And it's going to be an issue for this city. I mean, it's an issue for this city as a city itself. But it has to be an issue for this city as a city council. Walmart is just the beginning. I mean, you're telling me to put... I can't store the PCBs, and I agree. You can't store them unless you have a secured, approved location. I mean, that's a given. So they say, well, we don't have one. The province doesn't have one, and there's no private one here. So just tell me, and I can't find, there's no one off island who are going to take and transport the PCBs across Newfoundland to get rid of them.
I thought that the Department of the Environment were cooperating with Nova Scotia in
there is a plan. There is a plan, but that plan may be 5 or 6 years away. And I just want to make sure that we don't do anything that jeopardizes the security, the safe, secure containment of PCBs and PCB contaminated equipment. Now that's the issue. So by telling Walmart, no, you can't store them, they better tell us where they are putting them. Because if they can't put them on site, then we can't put our head in the sand and let it go away. We have to ask, you're not allowed to put them on site. We're not allowing that. But tell us where you're putting them. And they'll come back to us, I'm sure they will, and say, look, we'd love to put them in a secure...
Jerry King is our supervisor of environmental initiatives. Why don't we ask her what's happening? She should know.
Remember, we discussed this at length a few years ago. The PCBs that were stored by one of the utility companies were stored in by the regional water supply in the Goulds. Now, they were supposed to move it. If they moved it, where did they move it? Remember, we went to the Confederation building to speak with environmental people. First you laughed at me and told me they weren't there, but then we went in and you found out.
Who wasn't there? The
you
environmental
did, sir,
people?
but I know you didn't mean it.
Yeah.
But one of the utility companies had been storing them.
Well, anyway, why don't you
I'd
ask
like to find out
the head of our
if they have
environmental
been
team?
removed, where they went.
I think you're right. I think that, in view of what's happening, and this is in the beginning, I mean, there are other businesses in this town, as they inherit or purchase other properties, they are going to know that there are PCBs in many, many, many buildings in this city of St. John's. I mean, and it's not a secret. I mean, you can go to the Department of the Environment, and there is a list. I mean, there has to be a list. They have to know where PCBs presently exist. I mean, there is a natural compliance. But
Well, anyway, look, we've talked long enough on it. Can't we just ask Jerry King to look into it? She's getting paid to look after the environment, so will you do that, Mr. Chairman? Okay.
if I had the answer to that, I'd be a rich person in the city of St. John's or the province today.
All right.
Oh, there is. There's proof. There isn't.
Yeah, can we move on now? 65 Kingsbridge Road, I agree with that.
Number 4, could we have that deferred? We would not like to vote on this at this time because we are going to be meeting with the other groups concerned as well. There's a couple of items have come up, so we're asking that won't be left out, deferred from this meeting. Number 5, 65 Kingsbridge Road.
That's about 10 years overdue.
Yes, Your Worship, we are suggesting that the issue will be cleaned up and basically then cost to the occupant.
Is the piece coming down? I don't know if you're familiar with it. There is beginnings of the construction now of a porch. I say the framing is there. Is that being included in the removal and cleanup? I mean, this has gone on a long time, I must admit. Okay, let it go, Your Worship. Then.
All right, you're moving the report.
Your Worship, this is an example of where we put in the new system of administration now. This comes directly to the committee. These are new positions from what I understand to do some work in the goals. As you can see, Councillor Din seconded the motion.
Yes.
So 9-man crew would have been hired.
What sort of work are they doing?
Your Worship, I can tell you what's going on. Back almost 2 years ago, the city went in and they did a study of the sewer systems in the Goulds, and they came up with all the problems that were in there. Some of the problems that were in there were of a maintenance type of thing. You know, you had rocks in pipes, dents in pipes, cross connections and stuff like that. So what they're going to do, they're going to do some of these in-house.
Yeah.
So there's a 9-man crew
and this
going
won't
in.
be part of the major contract.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it won't be part of the contract. Our guys are doing this. So what's going to happen? They'll go in, say the Dirt will drive and do the work in there, Della Drive do the work in there, Riverside Drive, and then we can do some work on rehabilitating the streets in there. Now, I had a bit of concern at the beginning, but Paul Mackey has kind of ironed it out for me. I was concerned that they would be operating from the depot and that, they would be leaving the depot in the morning and going in there to do the work. But he says that they will be operating from the Goulds itself. So they will report the work at the Goulds and they will work there, and then you'll get more hours out in the day.
Moving your report, Councillor Coombs.
100,000 in addition to the 2 million.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
But last week we approved the 2 million plus $1.5 million for the arena.
This is not extra.
Pardon?
This is not extra. This is out of the 2.
This is part of the 2 million?
Right. Unless you want to make it extra.
No, I'm asking, is it part of the 2 million?
Yes.
All right.
Suppose it is. Are you sure of that? Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye. Contrary carried. Councillor Colbert?
Yes, Your Worship, the report of the Tourism, Recreation and Parks Committee. I'll go through it very briefly. The recommendations are, number 1, that we concur with the Johnson Foundation and the Grand Concourse Plan. There is a list of the items that that group will be beginning this summer, and it was more of an information session.
Are these amounts their money?
That's all their money, Your Worship.
Yeah.
It's an aggressive, exciting plan. As someday, the general public, I would hope that through Mr. Paul Johnson of the Johnson Foundation, the general public will get to see the Grand Concourse, the grand scheme for the Grand Concourse. It's a very aggressive plan. It's an exciting plan. But I think the most important part about it all, there's a plan. There is a very solid plan about what they want to do. So we recommend, unfortunately, number 2, the Eastern Swim Meet, they came to us and asked for some relief with respect to the use of the Aqua Arena for an invitational swim. And we were just unable to help them. We cut the costs every way we could, but it was just impossible to alleviate any further burden. So that's the fee that they will have to pay, $12,000 to host that meet. This is the All Newfoundland Swim Club, not our own local Legend Swim Club out of the Aqua Arena. Tourist maps, always a little point of contention. Our tourist people recommend to us that there is a small placemat map that they can purchase the rights to, the computer programming to, for $6,000. Now, we buy it off this person every year. It's a good little map, effective and inexpensive. So their recommendation, so that we wouldn't have to concur these costs constantly, and we could make the updates very, very simply, we would buy that program and we'd own it. They recommend that, but they also recommend that the more detailed maps, the ones that you see around the city, we would purchase at cost and sell at cost. There was just no way we could afford to give away these maps that are $2.75 and $3. Pardon?
I had been asking about this 3 or 4 times. This map we're talking about purchasing, the one that we would purchase and sell. Do you realize you can find your way around Goose Bay, Corner Brook, Gander, Stephenville? The Goulds is on the back of the map, and Mount Pearl is up there. And that's what we're going to purchase. It's $4, and it's about this thick, and you, as I say, you can find your way. I had the feeling, when I brought this up several times, I had the feeling that if you're going to Goose Bay, you don't want a map of St. John. And if you're coming in from Corner Brook, you'd kind of like to find your way around the big city here.
Well, I'm not sure what that has to do with the price of fish, but anyway.
What I asked for was a map. This little thing you tear off half the streets. Only about 10% of the streets are on that map. The downtown, you can find your way. But you go out McDonald Drive, nothing out there. You go to Count Heights, you can't find your way around. They're part of this city. I wanted a map. We have enough people in the tourist office to prepare a map that is the city of St. John's with the expanded area and put the names of the streets in. And forget about buying the $4 map so we can find our way around Goose Bay, Gander, Corner Brook, Stephenville.
You explain to me.
You know, don't try to pull that one on me.
I'm lost, I must say.
Your Worship, I'll endeavour not to try to pull that one out of the map that we're talking about. I believe is the map that's underneath your glass in front of you. I know it's underneath the glass in our private meeting room.
Yeah.
It is the city map. It is the map that on the reverse side has the downtown core. It does not have the Goulds yet. They are now trying to go back. They're now going to try to go back and.
But does it have Goose Bay and?
No, it doesn't have Gander and Goose Bay, and no, it doesn't have any of those.
City map.
No.
92?
No, it's not. It's the one after that.
What's the year of that, Your Worship?
No, I don't know what the year of it is, to tell you the truth.
Is that the one where the streets are very widely
Yeah,
done
Mount
out?
Pearl is there. Sure, that's nice. It's nice to know your way around Mount Pearl. Yeah,
What-
you have nothing against Mount Pearl.
You-
They have their own map. Good-looking one. You can find your way around Mount Pearl.
Well, you can
So-
certainly find your way around with this map.
Your Worship,
It even
I think
has
the best thing
Brennan
to do is
Street on it.
we'll bring the councillor a copy of the map next week.
Advertising.
We're not
bought
buying
that
these
off.
maps. They are not our maps. There's a private entrepreneur who produces these maps. We have nothing to do with these maps except as a distribution point. We don't produce them.
The last maps that were approved, John Tessier and Tony O'Keefe sold the advertising. It cost about 30 cents at the most for the map. Now you're talking about $4 or $6. That's not the map I'm talking about.
The map will be another subtle reminder of the people in the Goulds and Kilbride that you're not wanted were left out. And you notice I just sent this in this one.
Anyhow, we won't carry on with it. What we're saying is that it's the appropriate map. We had people from the tourism department there presenting us the maps, telling us exactly what they've done over the years. This wasn't made in isolation. The little map we're talking about that we're going to purchase the rights to is a tear-off one, like you get it if you go into a car company.
Yeah.
It enables you to get around a city with relative ease, but it doesn't tell you the back. Doesn't tell you where Buchanan Street is probably, or Downing Street. Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah. No, it's not an issue. It's not an issue. We had Mr. Gouju come in and simply say to us that this was the most functional map from a costing perspective to do. The other one is private, and we're just going to buy up so many of them and sell them at the cost. It's going to be in and out, no money to the city at all. Request for popcorn machines in Bannerman Park. We said that we had a request to put one down, someone to put one down there during events. We said we'll try it, see how it works. If there are any problems, we can change it. If not, let someone try to make $1 when there are events on the go at Bannerman Park. We also accepted a request from the Victoria Park Action Committee. They said they'd like to run the canteen out of the pool, and that would help them fund some of their projects, which we thought was a fabulous idea. So another initiative of a local neighbourhood doing for themselves. We are going to be in more consultation with Newfoundland and Labrador Folk Arts Council for sponsorship for the city. Guy Bradbury is going to go back to them to flesh out the ideas and see what our involvement might be. The contract, if you wish to have a copy, we can provide it, but the contract with the promoter for the Donald K. Donald concert is the same, essentially the same contract that we've had over the last number of years, just changing the times and dates.
It's not supposed to be the Citizens Committee or involved in that.
Yeah. Someone from the Waterford and County
I'm not, I'll be honest now, I don't.
Committee.
Yeah, why are we giving them Bowering Park? Are we getting paid for that?
No, they can go in as a mobile vendor. Anyone can move around. No, Bowering Park, they pay big bucks.
Yeah, I mean the outdoor concert.
Oh, yes, this is a revenue generator. I forget. I'm not sure. Is it? I never.
So that they know what was going on. I got a call from a gentleman who lives out there, and he wanted to know what was going on, and I couldn't tell him.
I think that's a good point. I don't know.
Yes, Your Worship,
Okay.
there is.
All right, go ahead.
There is a citizen on it. When this motion came through, one of the things we did was suggest that we... Mr. Fraser Pickett.
Oh, Rich, you are. That's right.
He is on.
Yes, he
Well,
is.
he don't know, because he never got a call. He called me when I know what was going on.
He called me after he spoke to you, Deputy Mayor, and I had arranged for him. That was last week. Yeah. Okay.
What time is the concert? There's a big event at the War Memorial at 10 o'clock. Then at noon down there on George Street, there's a Canada Day celebrations. Is this in the nighttime, I presume, this concert?
Starts in the afternoon, Your Worship, goes to the clock in the morning, I believe. Your Worship, number 8 is fee increases for St. John's Memorial Stadium. These fee increases are solely around the use of the stadium as an entertainment facility if you're using for people who are selling tickets or riggers or cleaners or security, bank, that sort of thing, okay? They're almost, if you look at them, they're in an appendix. If you look at them, there's not very much, not compared to what others are charging. We will be coming back next time with a potential increase for the fees for the use of the ice hockey, for the ice surface. So we've asked the manager just to go back and have a look at that because we want to make sure it compares favorably with the other rinks in the city of St. John's, and in fact we are not giving it cheaper or subsidizing it. Number 9, the mandatory use of helmets. There was at the St. John's Memorial Stadium. There was a question raised whether or not, since we got into the bicycle helmets, and whether or not at the St. John's Memorial Stadium we would we would, as a must, wear helmets while you are skating. The thought was that just wouldn't hold water. What we've asked is the manager to go back. There is a skaters committee, and he's going to talk with them. And I think what's essentially going to happen was that we would strongly encourage the use. In other words, it wouldn't be mandatory use, but we would strongly encourage you to use a helmet while you're skating. I understand that almost all, if not every school child wears a helmet when they're participating in a school event. And if you go down skating on the weekends yourself, you'll see most small children, young children, wearing a helmet. Alternate site for the sports complex. Unfortunately, it was the recommendation of the committee that we not give the Canada Games Park facility to St. John's Minor Soccer. There was a suggestion that Mr. Bradbury would be asked if, in fact, he could look for another location. He had a couple of possible locations, but we informed him that those locations were under active consideration by a developer, and they perhaps would not be available. I dissented on that. I thought that it was long overdue, and now in light of the fact, Your Worship, that the Mount Cashel properties, we've made a decision that we will not go after the Mount Cashel properties in the near future because of financial considerations. It perhaps puts a greater onus on us now to try to help this group. So although the committee, I voted against it, but the recommendation by the majority members of the committee were that we denied the St. John's Minor Soccer Association the use of the Canada Games Park. I would hope that we might want to reconsider that at some future date early, now that, I say, the Mount Cashel site is out, because it's been up there since 1977, and it would be an opportunity, I think, for its constructive use and for its cleanup and maintenance. So, but anyhow, that's the committee. This corporate sponsorship of departmental services. Your Worship, this is going to be an interesting one over the next couple of years. I know myself and the Deputy Mayor have discussed this on a number of occasions, and it had to do with the First Lights Festival and New Year's Eve. But there are some suggestions, there are some potential big money items if the city were to allow private entrepreneurs to use our facilities as a way to as a way to put up their logos, as a way to come involved with some of our events. In other words, they pay us. Let me give you one potential example, and that's the Aqua Arena slide. There was one firm who were inclined to think about, or we were asking, whether or not they want to put signage in the slide. That would be appropriate, you know. And for that, they'd buy the slide and pay us so much for their advertising. Great opportunity for us to make some money, because, I mean, that's just the way it's going right now. I mean, the fact of life is we just don't have the money, and if we can encourage this, then I think...
Have we got the slide fixed yet?
No, the slide isn't fixed yet. It's.
I mean, that just make $80,000 a year.
Yes.
Pay for itself in 1 year.
I understand, and they are working on it. So we're waiting to hear back now with respect to a corporate sponsor, because you have to design in terms of that. But we've asked for an inventory. There's no sense jumping into this unless you know how deep the water is. So what we've said to Mr. Bradbury is, bring us back an inventory of potentially where would advertisers be able to use space or equipment in the city of St. John's that we could realize revenue through a partnership. I mean, it could be on the side of a pool. It could be the bottom of the pool be painted in some logo. So we've left that as well. And finally, Your Worship, Seaside Stables, we've suggested that we reevaluate, or not reevaluate, we extend their contract with us until 1996. Seaside Stables is a small entrepreneur who runs pony rides and sleigh rides in the winter, pony rides in the summer at Boring Park. Our staff tell us that he keeps the place very clean. He gets along well with the staff. They've had absolutely no complaints. So they're prepared to recommend that his contract be extended for 2 years, give him an opportunity then to be able to purchase some new equipment and know that he has a place to go to be able to pay it off. So that's...
Moving your report.
And I would move it.
Seconder. Councillor O'Neill. Any discussion? Yeah.
There are 2 concerts in there. If they're having a contract, anything that is in there by the city they wouldn't be in there those days.
No.
But you have to put it in your contract.
Yeah, no, they already know that. They will not be operating. At times when the park is being used for a major function such as the upcoming concert, that concert promoter has all rights to the park with respect to rides and whatnot, and they're aware of that in the contract.
All right, we turn now to your second agenda. There are 12 items recommended for approval on the Development Committee. You can approve them en masse if you wish.
Items 12.
Any discussion on any item? If not, I'll put the question. All those in favor say aye. Are there any nays?
Your Worship, on the one, Ben Johnson,
Yes. Item number 1.
Toys R Us, they have not signed this.
What do you mean they haven't